the shooting piece is the hardest thing to develop, and it's the most perishable one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. It takes a significant amount of time. I mean, Ben, how much time did it take you, or what was the level of commitment to become what you would consider good at shooting or competitive? Where
it's like 20, 30 hour a week commitment for 6 years is what it took me, I would say.
Yeah, and I also think too that that's an unrealistic expectation for most people.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, it was insane. It was all of my extra money, and it's like a part-time job for like 6 years.
Yeah, and that's not like, most people aren't going to do that, and I don't think, for me, I expect anyone to do that. Like,
no, that's crazy.
If you're into it, but usually, like when I'm dealing with people through social media or something like that, I'll match my level of interest matches their level of enthusiasm. Right? Dudes that are training all the time send me videos. I'll take as much time as I can to break it down and give them my feedback. Right? And then you continue working, then my interest grows in, hey, how much are you developing? How are you training? But I think a lot of people won't commit that time. Right? I've actually gotten some messages from law enforcement guys that are pretty aggressive, where their mentality is, if they're not going to get paid for it, they're not going to train it. That's like,
absolutely,
like a theme across the LE community, right? If my agency isn't paying me, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Right? And they say, oh, well, I work 40, 50 hour week, and then you want me to go spend another 10 hours a week training. It's like, no, I'm talking about commit 10 minutes a day to dry firing, right? The thing that you carry all day long.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting too. That's where you see this a lot in terms of training. And Ben, I know you see it in classes. As soon as you give information out, you show guys, hey, where to find information, how to train, the onus goes back onto them. Now you ask them to do a little bit of work, and that right there is where it just commitment drops off.
Yeah.
Motivation drops off, commitment drops off.
There's no immediate reward. There's no immediate reward to that. They look at it and, what am I getting in return? They can't see it, they can't touch it, it's not tangible. So they don't recognize proficiency as the reward. They look at something tangible. What am I going to get? What are you going to give me as the reward? And I've gone through this with tons of people that are, doing because I do that post red dot class with Pat. It's like, before you even come here, if you have a red dot pistol, just start drawing and presenting the gun where you're looking and find the dot. Like, before you even get here, it'll make it so much easier on you. And I put that out, and then people will show up and go, who here dry fired before you came out? One dude or one chick, like, oh, I did. How much? Oh, about 20 minutes yesterday. And that was it. I'm like, and that's the thing. It's the immediate reward is not there. And I think for some people, it's a freaking bridge too far. If they don't get an immediate reward, they're not looking like, I'm going to dry fire every day for the next 4 months, and then I'm going to see the benefits. They look at it as, I dry fired yesterday and it didn't make any difference. And I think that's something that people need to look at themselves about.
Well, and I think that's where the education of expectation is so important. I mean, there's a difference in someone expecting to be a professional or simply being competent, which realistically most concealed carry citizens can really only be competent. They're not going to be a GM pistol shooter. Same with, like, say, being a super good CQB dude. With the amount of training civilians can actually put into that, they will probably only be competent. They're not actually going to be a professional hostage rescue counter dude. And I think that's where there's a pretty big disconnect, is people think they can be professional training 4 times a year, like 4 days a year, and compare themselves to a tier 2 or even a tier 1 unit who's doing that quite a bit more. And most people can really only be competent. They're not going to be a professional. Like, they're not. If they're not doing this for a job, they're not going to be a shooting professional or a tactics professional. They can only be competent. And I think that's where the education from some of you guys who have done that at a professional level can say, hey, this is what you all can attain with this much training, this much time. But shooting as much as Ben shoots, yeah, that's You're not going to do that. Not everyone's going to
No.
be a GM. It's just not going to happen. And then when people have a realistic expectation, they can actually train to it and not waste a bunch of time doing crap, which is what most people are doing nowadays. That's just my opinion, though. But